You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whatever audio podcatcher you're on and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but helps keep all of this free. If you want more, join the Insiders program in the subtext link down below. No trolls, 14-day free trial, and the easiest way ever to cancel, so give it a try. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. Now, Ole Miss struggled against Washington State. I'm not here to tell you that they didn't. That was a bad look from everybody. Lane Kiffin even talked about we make too much money, both the coaches and the players, to put up a performance like that. The fans even didn't show up, even though I'm not going to get mad at them because it was the 5th home game out of 6. And heading into South Carolina and Florida, that place is going to be bumping there. I expect the Citadel to also be a little bit problematic for Ole Miss fans. But the fan base, everybody was focused on the Georgia Bulldogs. Everybody, including Lane Kiffin, who talked about we're going to practice the Georgia Bulldogs for 2 days this week. And I am of the opinion it's like military technology to where you only know about 20% of what is actually there. If they said that they only practice on them 2 days, they probably did it closer to 5, if we're going to be honest about that. So the coaches weren't looking too heavily at Washington State. The players obviously weren't looking too heavily against Washington State. The fans were all looking towards Georgia. Everybody was looking towards Georgia the moment they walked off the field against the LSU Tigers. And because of that, Jimmy Rogers, who created a little bit of a dynasty at South Dakota State, he's a very good football coach. He almost destroyed Ole Miss's season. I have nothing but respect to the people from Pullman, Washington, and the Washington State Cougar fans who made the trip. They completely showed out at the game, and they were all over town. They traveled very well. Congratulations. Thank you. Nothing but respect for you, okay? But this was a game about the Jimmies and the Joes. I talked about this last week. And because of that, the Jimmies and the Joes eventually won out. Now, the X's and O's almost got there. Zevi Eckhouse and their passing game was pretty good. They hit an explosive play on a trick play early on. They hit an explosive run, which is something that you wouldn't expect as well. But I would be willing to bet that they were lack of focused MAs in both accounts. So Ole Miss won that game. They got up 2 scores in the 4th quarter, gave up 1 at the very end, got the 1-score win at the end of the day. But if you look at this game, it still was fairly lopsided. Ole Miss had 25 first downs to 20 for Washington State, 186 yards rushing compared to 127. That includes an explosive play for Washington State. It was probably over the course of things 70, 80 yards. Passing had 253 yards to 219 for Washington State for a total of 439 to 346. Ole Miss had a turnover in the game. It's important to know that I said this was a Jimmy's and the Joes game, and I talked myself into analytics. It was almost like Lane Kiffin picking that 4th down. I want this to be true, so I'm going to look at this stat and let it be exactly what I think. Ole Miss going forward on that 4th and 3 was dumb. Me going from picking a 35-17 score to picking a 48-17 score was also dumb. I shouldn't trust analytics. I apologize for that. But Washington State performed really well. Now, at the end of the day, I'm just flushing this because, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, the whole fan base was talking about Georgia, which means everybody that was talking to the players were talking about Georgia. The coaching staff was talking about Georgia. The network TV, everybody around the program was talking about Georgia. Nobody was talking about Washington State. And because of that, you got that performance. I honestly, it wouldn't surprise me at all if I found out that, Georgia was a focal point of the service team each and every day of practice. We did no work on Washington State. We ran these couple of plays that we thought would be pretty good. We didn't think Washington State would be able to adjust, and it was going to be a blowout. I would honestly not be surprised if that was told to me. And Ole Miss won the game, okay? That's the important part about this. Ole Miss won the game. So if Lane Kiffin thought, hey, we can get by Washington State without practicing, well, Ole Miss got by Washington State. So it's mission accomplished. It just wasn't necessarily the most pretty thing in the world. So we'll see exactly what it looks like when they get to Georgia and Athens. With College GameDay being in town, it's not going to be a problem at all to get people completely locked in and focused for this game. This will be the biggest game that Trinidad Chambliss has ever played. This is going to be the biggest game that Wyatt Williams has probably ever played. Heck, it's going to be the biggest game that people like William Eccles and Cam Franklin that's ever played on the field. They might have been on the team, but they're on the field right now. So the first rule that you hope for is that they don't freak out emotionally. They got 50 burgered the last time they went to Athens, Georgia. Now, they dominated Georgia and Oxford, Mississippi last year, which means that Georgia's probably going to be up for this game as well. So anybody that's worried about giving them bulletin board material, that's not going to be necessary after what happened last year. They're going to be extremely up for that game. College GameDay picking this game over Alabama and Tennessee, over USC and Notre Dame, over, I think Texas Tech is playing somebody ranked as well. I think they're playing Arizona State or something like that. Picking this game proves that they got the game because it's the game of the week. It is the best football game of the week. It's not just, hey, it would be kind of cool if we did a show from the Grove, or, hey, if we do a show here, we can pick Ole Miss and all of that stuff. No. Like we said in the first segment, this is validation that Lane Kiffin has gotten this program to a point where they want it to be. To a point where they're just a dominant football program that doesn't care about bowl eligibility. They are a playoffs or bust program. That isn't anything to be ashamed of. It is just the truth. And I'm pretty excited to see exactly what Ole Miss can do about that. Coming up in our final segment, we're taking a look at this week's leans and locks across the SEC, where things stand right now. We'll break down the FanDuel lines, matchups that stand out early, and the games that could shake up the standings. Which favorites look safe, which underdogs have real value, and where Ole Miss fits into all of it. All of that is coming up next. Thank you so much for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the front door of Ole Miss. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it's absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. In another big moment on Locked On, college football fans Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview show. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's panel of local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. You can catch me likely on it this week with Ole Miss playing Georgia. Hotty toddy, everybody, and remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.